TPUSA has a big problem, and it's about to get worse. When Candace Owens first suggested that TPUSA was involved in a cover-up around Charlie Kirk's murder, most people didn't take it seriously. But just 3 months later, the tide has now turned, and now TPUSA has lost public trust. But on Monday, they're finally responding, and they've promised to set the record straight. They even challenged Candace to come debate them live in person, and a lot of people think that this is where TPUSA ends the conspiracies with facts. But I don't think that's gonna happen, because the reason why Candace won so many people over in the first place had very little to do with the facts and everything to do with how she framed the conversation before the facts were ever heard. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the framing tactics that Candace is using, and then I'll explain what I believe is the only approach TPUSA can take if they wanna have any chance of persuading people who currently believe Candace. You see, this right here is the reason why facts alone won't matter on Monday.
There's nobody that has the capacity to get me to shut up about this except for Erica Kirk. I'm not going to stop unless Erica Kirk asks me to stop. I said early on, if Erica Kirk asks me to be quiet, I will be quiet.
But then Erica did say to stop.
Podcaster Candace Owens. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies. What do you want to say to her?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
And instead of stopping, Candace doubled down. And the reason why she's able to get away with this is because of her framing. Before Erica even sat down at Fox News, Candace has already spent months building a very specific frame. And nearly everyone who was connected to Charlie before his death was positioned as suspicious. And that matters because a frame doesn't change what people hear, it changes how they hear everything that comes after the framing. So when Erica finally spoke publicly, Candace's audience didn't hear a widow defending her team. They heard exactly the frame that she trained them to hear: guilt.
My silence does not mean that I am complacent. When you go after the people that I love, because somehow they're in on this, this is not okay. It's not healthy. This is a duty to my husband, and it's an absolute honor, and I will never back down. And so my message to them is to stop.
This is why her audience didn't flinch when Candace described Erica's interview like this.
Whoa! Whoa, Erica Kirk shuts down the No, she didn't even respond to one of the conspiracies. She gave us emotion. This is why there are many people who do not believe that women are equipped to lead companies, because what you are watching here is an unbelievably emotional response that is absent of any logic.
Okay, now for someone who isn't primed to distrust her, Erica's anger is exactly what she said it was. Genuine frustration with Candace for insinuating that the people that she knows and loves were in on it, and how that's now undermining decades of work that her husband gave his life to build. But Candace's audience wasn't hearing Erica, they were hearing the frame. If Erica is emotional, she's hiding something. And if she's calm, she doesn't care, which means that she's hiding something. And if she pushes back against Candace, she's defensive, which means that she's hiding something. And if she doesn't push back against Candace and she stays silent, that also means that she's hiding something. And meanwhile, Candace's own emotional arguments never register as manipulation because she never framed herself as someone that you should distrust. So on Monday, the same framing is gonna apply to TPUSA. If anyone shows sadness, anger, or moral conviction, Candace will interpret it, and her audience will hear it, as emotional manipulation or the lack of self-control, just like how she did with Tim Pool, for example. That's why genuine emotion and the facts are not gonna save TPUSA, because their emotions are already framed as guilt. Okay, but next comes the privacy issue, and this is where Candace's framing becomes almost impossible to escape. Watch how a completely normal boundary gets reinterpreted as evidence of wrongdoing. Erica said that she only wanted to keep one thing private, and that's where Charlie was buried.
Can I have one thing? Can my babies have one thing where we hold it sacred, where my husband is laid to rest, where I don't have to be worried about some secular revolutionary coming and destroying my husband's grave while my daughter is sitting there praying?
But listen to how Candace reframed that boundary.
You want privacy when you want it, but you want publicity whenever you want it, and that just doesn't work. This is the same person who had somebody record her over Charlie Kirk's casket, and to publish his body on Instagram was a decision that was made by Erica. That is an incredibly personal and an incredibly intimate moment that you invited the public into. And now you fast forward 3 months removed, and it's why does the public want to know where he's buried? It doesn't work like that.
So for anyone that hasn't listened to Candace and adopted her framing of distrust, this is entirely reasonable. Erica doesn't want strangers with ill intent showing up at the place where her family goes to grieve. And that's not suspicious. It seems like a normal human request. However, inside Candace's framing, any attempt at privacy becomes evidence of a cover-up. And this is exactly why Turning Point can't win on Monday by sharing facts alone, no matter how reasonable, because while the trial is still ongoing, there will always be information that they can't release. And that means that Candace's audience will hear every withheld detail as confirmation of wrongdoing and every released detail as inconsistent or suspect. Either way, they lose. And this is where Candace's distrust framing becomes truly dangerous. Once the frame is in place, any disagreement is rewritten as proof of corruption or coordination. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say just about every single high-profile person that's publicly disagreed with Candace, she's implied that they're either corrupt or that they're in on it. So if you notice, pointing out Candace's errors or questioning her couldn't possibly be because she's wrong, or even because people are tired of watching her literally destroy Charlie's work and hurting other people in the process. Instead, in her framing, disagreement is seen as having nefarious motives. If you correct her facts, then you're part of the psyop. And if you challenge her logic, then you're part of the psyop. And even if you mention Candace's name in a negative way, part of the psyop. What we're left with is no scenario where criticism means Candace might be wrong. It always means that you're in on it. You're being paid by Israel and so on. This framing removes the possibility of honest disagreement, and every critic is framed as part of the conspiracy. So it's important to remember that this is how she's going to respond to any counter narratives that Turning Point is going to show. Literally, no matter what they say on Monday, it'll be framed as being part of the scripted psyop. And even if they don't respond to a lot of the claims, then it's going to be the same thing that she's been saying all along. Their silence on these facts proves that they're in on the cover-up. This frame delegitimizes every possible messenger except for Candace, which means that she doesn't have to be correct, she only has to make everyone else look compromised. Okay, so here's why all of this puts TPUSA at a massive disadvantage going into Monday. Candace has 3 straight months of daily content to frame TPUSA as untrustworthy, and her audience has already bought into that framing long before TPUSA decided to respond. So if they walk into Monday thinking that they can fix this with facts alone, then they're walking straight into a trap. In their announcement video, they said that they plan to expose the truth and to correct the facts that Candace got wrong. Now that sounds good in theory, but as we've already seen, people aren't believing Candace because of the facts. This means that any correction that Turning Point gives will be heard as further confirmation of guilt, not as a refutation of it. And secondly, what also makes Candace so persuasive is the fact that she often starts where her audience already has an ache, which gives them emotional buy-in to what she's saying. Whether that's distrust of the FBI after the Epstein investigation, resentment towards government cover-ups, memories of the BLM era manipulation, and so on. Not only are these emotional touchpoints for her audience, but these are the same things that Turning Point has pointed their audience to in the past as well. So this puts her in the position where she doesn't even need to explain to people why they shouldn't trust the FBI in Charlie Kirk's case. And this is where I believe Turning Point is likely to make a mistake. By pointing to the FBI as a trusted reason for why Turning Point is innocent, clearly that is not going to be taken as credible evidence by her audience, nor a lot of the people in Turning Point's audience, which is the core problem. If Turning Point even wants a chance at reaching the people who currently agree with Candace, then they cannot start with the facts. They have to first reset the framing before they present any facts, or else everything that they say is going to be filtered through the suspicion that Candace has already built. So what should they do? Well, here's one way to reset the framing. They can reset the framing not by telling the viewers what she's doing, but showing them by doing the same thing that she's doing. They can be just as suspicious of her as she is of them. Not to accuse her of anything, but to reveal how her method works. So in theory, they can start by reframing the way that the audience sees her by asking her questions about her motives. For example, she tells us that we can't trust the FBI and implies that the reason why she couldn't go to Charlie's memorial is because they would harm or kill her.
You know, while I'm attacking the feds, maybe not going to a public event which the feds are organizing is probably a very good idea.
And then they could ask, so why then did she reach out to them when she said that there was an assassination attempt on her life? I thought that the FBI were the ones that she believed wanted to harm her.
I report to the FBI. Of course, I reported it to the FBI.
So is she working with the FBI? I mean, after all, she did admit to having someone who's high up in the FBI, their personal phone number, and was texting them.
The FBI left me on red. And I will say I didn't go through an official channel and send an email, and I should do that. But I did send a text message to somebody very high up who received the text message.
So how do we know that she isn't the one working with the FBI to distract people away from the true killer? And also, what other reason would there be for her to say that her favorite text from Charlie that she released publicly was one where he was talking about a girl that he was in love with that wasn't Erica?
This text message is one of my favorite text messages between me and Charlie. He was just kind of in love with this girl.
Was this an attempt to enrage Erica now that Erica is the new CEO of Turning Point? I mean, just think about it. Why is it that we never seem to hear the names of Candace's sources? And why can we never verify what these sources are saying for ourselves? Is indistinguishable from someone that's making it all up and is part of a government psyop. So really the question is this: could she have used her elite status, her influence, and her FBI connections as an attempt to destroy Turning Point? After all, what sounds more logical to you? That Charlie was so dumb that he accidentally handpicked each person at Turning Point who somehow all decided to agree to conspire against them and he had no idea and even his wife is in on it? Or is it more probable that Candace is a Fed who's being used to pull people away from the official narrative? But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that she is involved, I'm just asking questions. Okay, so you get the point. If Turning Point resets the framing from the beginning of the conversation by not only applying the same degree of skepticism and distrust to Candace, and also finds the frustration that her audience already shares, then they will give themselves the best chance of winning over Candace's fans. So we'll see how it goes, and come back here after and we'll see if I was right. And if you didn't catch my last video on the tactics that Candace uses that makes her so persuasive, go ahead and click on the video on the screen and I'll see you over there. All right? Thanks for watching.